For the uninitiated, the only aspects of Dark Souls you may already know about is this meme. Transcending the immensity of the game itself, the Praise the Sun meme has become used in various forums of games media, appearing on social media, Easter eggs in other games titles, and even commonplace at conventions. But where did it begin? Well, it's likely most of you know who it began with. The character Solaire introduced us to the gesture within the first few hours of the game, but the story of Solaire and his famous gesture span much further in the past than this. It goes all the way back to a very infant Hidetaka Miyazaki, the creator of Dark Souls. Miyazaki was a curious kid with an imagination to match his curiosity. A native Japanese speaker, he was a bit of a bookworm, just not the type you'd imagine, because he loved all things Western literature. Having grown up in the poor Shizuoka region of Japan, his English was less than fluent. This didn't stop little Miyazaki from reading Western epics such as Lord of the Rings though. Unfortunately, there were parts of Tolkien's writing that transcended Miyazaki's grasp of the English language. Undeterred, however, Miyazaki continued to enjoy these epics by filling in the gaps himself, imagining the world the way that he saw fit. In this, a new form of storytelling was emerging in the mind of young Miyazaki. He found an artistic liberty forming in himself through the confidence of being able to understand worlds in a distinctly unique way due to his way of reading Western tales. This distinct form of storytelling would become the bedrock for how the Dark Souls series is communicated to its audience. Miyazaki took his previous inability to understanding English literature and reframed it into a mode of storytelling that gave us, the audience, the power to enjoy art without the restrictions of language. Miyazaki projected trust and confidence in our ability to perceive the world, and we fell in love with it. It's exactly this form of storytelling developed and nurtured by Miyazaki that is most present when we come to encounter Solaire of Astora. Solaire is one of the first NPCs we encounter that's openly kind and blissfully optimistic in a world so far characterized as entirely nihilistic. Up to this point, and for the rest of the game, Dark Souls is shrouded by a deep apocalyptic fog, facing off against enemies, forcing our hand, NPCs forcing our resilience, and environments forcing our hopeful spirit. Under this cloud, Solaire stands tall and asks us one simple favour: to help one another on this lonely journey, for nothing in return but camaraderie and, of course, the joy of jolly cooperation. He then gives us an item, the White Sign Soapstone, a means of inviting other players with the purpose of helping them through this originally lonely struggle. This statement is then subtly complemented by a gesture. Arms stretched towards the dwindling light of the sky against the clouds of nihilism, forcing a silver lining. Through this, we learn the Praise the Sun gesture. Dark Souls, much like Miyazaki's storytelling methodology, has no means of communicating through language. There are no multiplayer voice features, and it's this one gesture that allows us to project Solaire's kindness to a player base on the same path as us. This gesture from the get-go is how we reach out to the humanity of players across the globe, absent of differences in language or cultural nuances, as praising the sun is distinctly unlike any already established means of showing empathy, a gesture so bloody outlandish that it's distinctly tied to the zeitgeist of the Dark Souls player base. A Reddit post summarizes this perfectly. Mighty Squid Warrior tells us, "Without waxing too poetic about my man crush for Knight Solaire, let me just point out that he is the first person players encounter who is truly nice to us for no reason other than that he is a friendly fellow. At this point, we've been beaten down so many times we think that everything that moves in the game is out to kill us, so encountering an outright helpful NPC is shocking. In our joy, we have to praise the sun." Soon enough, Dark Souls would become a global phenomenon, and of course the once isolated in-joke of a gesture would also become synonymous with how the community shared a kind nod between one another on the internet once the franchise had transcended into internet virality. YouTube, Tumblr, Facebook, Instagram, Discord, Reddit, and any other form of social media even slightly linked to gaming would become obsessed with using Solaire and his gesture to galvanize the player base, to show empathy and to nurture community. Hell, even games completely detached from the Souls franchise would start using this gesture to demonstrate those same feelings. And without realizing, the internet fell in love with Solaire, an NPC that showed empathy in a world plagued by nihilism, empathy that transcended even Lordran, empathy that saw me and my friends online and otherwise share some seriously great memories too. And the funny thing is, the Praise the Sun gesture first made an appearance in Demon Souls, not Dark Souls. Miyazaki initially was told to throw it out due to how outlandish it looked to his higher-ups, but knew it was just outlandish enough to fulfill his longing for a means to communicate distinctly and unapologetically to his audience. Miyazaki writes, "That pose actually carries some significance for me. During Demon Souls, that was a holy sign. When I presented the game to the rest of the company, I showed them the pose, and one of the higher-ups told me it just wasn't cool enough. Of course, I told him I'd get rid of it, but secretly I kept it in the game. So naturally, with Dark Souls, I was determined to put it to use." Truly a testament to Miyazaki's stubbornness, his creativity, and a confidence in his player base we seldom see anywhere else in the games industry. Solaire and his gesture is immortalized in history as Dark Souls' way of saying, even when things get lonely, we're in this together. So remember, no matter how dark your clouds are right now, we can all be grossly incandescent. And for the fans of everything Jolly Cooperation, join this community for a kind place to discuss all things gaming. Praise the Sun.